Good morning. Welcome to the second week of business ethics. And this week we've got a couple of chapters that we'll be exploring. And so we'll talk about those a little bit today. Plus, we've got a couple of discussion posts that we'll be getting into this week. So I want to kind of highlight those with you as well. So we'll go ahead and get started. First on the discussion posts, the first week was kind of a softball. I tossed y'all. It wasn't too difficult, kind of the state of business ethics. This week, we're going to get into our first week of a little bit tougher ones. These are topics that are kind of controversial, and they can be kind of cringeworthy, if you will. But these are the types of things that we have facing us out there at about every turn. So I think it's important to just dive in and talk about some of these. Again, my requirements on all of these is to be, research a little bit, be direct, but also be respectful. Also in response posts, some of these get a little out there, and I just want everybody to be respectful of each other's opinions. As we go through this process, it's really important that what this class is about is for people to get out of your echo chambers, get out of what's convenient for you to think, and to really think about things multidimensionally. And I've got a lot of these framed that way that it kind of leads you through that process. But again, much of our existence anymore is about being in our camps, being in our little boxes that we kind of feel comfortable in. What I'm really trying to do with all of these is to get everybody out of those boxes, to really pull yourself out a little bit. Research different opinions than yours. Think about what folks are thinking on the other side of issues, and let's really try to get on multiple levels as we kind of go through these. The first topic, and you do have a choice of which one you want to do. So this is your choice between these two. The first topic is child labor always bad? Should it be illegal worldwide? How long ago did how long ago did child labor become illegal in the U.S.? And I'll kind of spoiler alert here, but it isn't really that long that it's been illegal in the US. Are there circumstances in which it could be construed as good or even necessary? Are morals universal across the globe? And is it appropriate that the US tries to impose its moral and ethical standards onto the rest of the world? Okay. So the second topic, this past couple of years, actually it's been a couple of years ago, Governor Ralph Northam, who is the Virginia governor, was accused of appearing in blackface at a party while in medical school. And the question here is it appropriate that we could be constrained for our entire professional careers by the immature and questionable acts that we commit while younger? Is it appropriate to judge someone on how they behaved in the past in relation to today's sensitivities, whether it be #MeToo, racial, sexual identity, or cultural? An example might be John Wayne did some racial comments in a Playboy interview more than 50 years ago. And Orange County in California, who had named their airport after him, there is a big movement to strip his name from that airport. Equality and treatment of gay rights, that's a fairly recent phenomenon. And so people that 40 or 50 years ago made statements on those fronts when sensitivities and legal issues weren't quite as to the forefront as they are now, is it fair that they're maybe constrained by those or judged by today's sensitivities? So again, these aren't easy discussions, but let's kick it around. And is there a time, or is there a line to be drawn where should it be? Say if you're past college age, Ralph Northam Northam was a medical student. So he was in medical school. So he would have probably been 22, 23 or up, maybe even 25 or 26. So where should that line be drawn if it is going to be drawn? And is this debate changed by the fact that much of our lives is now under scrutiny of cameras, both public and private? There were things that could have happened years ago that would have never been caught on camera, whereas today, about everything we do could possibly be on camera. So anyway, that's the topics that you have to choose from this week. You don't have to do them both, just do one or the other if you'd like. And I think should prove a lively debate for this week's discussions. Keep in mind, since we do have 2 chapters due this week, there will be 2 quizzes due as well. And those are in the modules, and the due dates are on those. Again, I'm pretty relaxed on due dates, so if you get jammed up and you can't get them both done this week, you can catch them up, but just try not to get too far behind if you can keep up. Keep that from happening. And chapter 2 and chapter 3 is what we'll be covering this week. And chapter 2 is on stakeholder relationships and social responsibility and corporate governance. And chapter 3 is on emerging business ethics issues. Now, both of these chapters have some big items and big issues in common. And that's what I'm going to kind of key in on as we look at chapter 2 and chapter 3. So both of these have common threads in the light of what is businesses' responsibilities to their different and even divergent stakeholders. What trumps what? To use a card analogy, you don't need to use President Trump's name, but what trumps what in terms of what is more important than the other? And is that universal? Does that stay the same, or is it constantly in a state of motion? And then finally, how do we balance all of these competing forces and demands? How do we balance these competing forces and demands ties in with emerging business ethics. So how we balance all of this, it really is part of the emerging business ethical landscape. And we're having many of these discussions as we speak. We saw this past month business leaders who stepped up on the topic of the Capitol Hill riots. Some taking very firm stands against the violence and the Trump family and their organizations, canceling relationships and even business arrangements with them. A couple of examples would have been PGA stripped the Trump properties of a tournament, and Home Depot had a very outside statement, and they impacted their relationships with the family and their organizations. So you saw some business leaders really jump out and take a firm stand on this. We're also seeing some major automobile companies that are volunteering to meet more restrictive and stringent regulations in regards to climate change, rules and regulations that were rolled back in the past 4 years or so under the Trump administration. So some of that might be the changing tides. They see a new administration coming in and trying to get on the right side of that. But some of it, hopefully, is just consumers taking more of a stand on that, and maybe the companies seeing the tide is turning a little bit. In the face of much suffering due to the pandemic, I think there's going to be major pressures on companies to help with employment opportunities and contributing more than ever to social needs and causes. So I think you're already seeing some of those pressures out there, especially with these companies that are coming out, frankly, as big winners in all this. Think Amazon.com, think the Home Depots and the Lowe's and the Menards and the Walmarts and the Targets. I mean, there's been some companies that have really been doing extremely well through the face of all this. Sonic might be another example of a company where they have drive-ins and dining. They haven't been near as impacted as the eat-in restaurants or the bars and those type of things. Also, there's customers, investors, and communities that are getting more assertive about their expectations and then voting with their wallets for and against companies that either are perceived to do their part or are not doing their part. So these are some of the challenges that businesses have to balance, and the further requirements and accountability is going to continue to grow, I think, in the coming decade, maybe even decades. So these are the types of things, as you're reading this week's chapters, be thinking about all of this changing landscape that we find ourselves in right now, and how businesses are going to position and navigate accordingly. So that's what we have for this week. Again, if anybody needs any help or any assistance, or would like to just kick some things around with me, be sure and reach out, and I'll be glad to help in any way I can. Hope you enjoyed the reading and the chapters. There's some videos available this week, and I'll post probably some additional content as the week goes by. So be keeping up with the announcements, and we'll look forward to talking to you next week. Thank you all.